I just watched 3 hours of Freud and Jung, and I'd like to contribute my experience of the self. Basically, if you look at Freud, he talks about pleasure. I suppose that might be true for very young children, but they do not have a fully formed myelin network in the brain. Their brains act 1,000 times slower than the adult brain. As the myelin network develops, the brains tend to act 1,000 times faster than the myelin sheath develops. I like to say that it's reward and the dopaminergic system that Freud is actually talking about. And this is associated closely with learning. And I hear as pleasure pain theories don't particularly strike equally well, but some people have a pleasure pain inversion, for instance. A reward system seems to be much more applicable to the modern understanding of the dopaminergic system. And he talks about trauma and things like that. Trauma affecting children, which is a fight response to the adrenal cortisol network, as we know it now, which is controlled by the GABA system, which is things like Valium and things like that, for instance. And then there's also bipolar, which he says is purely pleasure seeking. Now we know that is as a result of low sodium levels, and sodium is an important chemical in the nervous system and the correct function and response of the nervous system. And low sodium levels can lead to mania. These things are separate from the underlying ego descriptions of Freud, describes with the id being purely pleasure-seeking and the ego having some control over that. The way that I view self is in your entire bodily organ and out to the extent of the skin, because when you touch yourself, you can feel yourself. When you get a conscious reaction of that touching and feeling, well, I feel a little consciousness is and subconscious isn't described fully either. After a lot of experience of taking drugs, I've had a lot of experience of altered states of consciousness that may not have been around in Freud's time. Certainly some of the drugs I've taken weren't around in Freud's time. And these legal and prescribed drugs, not just illicit drugs, I would say. And these altered states of consciousness have brought me to an alternative view of the self, which is a little like the Jungian self, but more as if your consciousness is a camera lens, and it can have a focus, and it can have concentration, let more light in. You have like an f-stop, which is depth of field in camera, so you can focus on a wider array of things at the same time, and things like that. And so I feel your consciousness under stress becomes your concentration. We talk about concentration. The concentration of your consciousness reduces. So you don't have so much, you're not consciously aware, and this is your concentration, and your focus can increase, which is similar to a camera lens. So you're focusing on a particular topic, but that can result in paranoia, because if you're focusing on a very narrow point of view, thoughts coming from the outside will appear to be juxtaposed, and so you're going to have paranoia. And cannabis, for instance, makes you more focused. Ketamine increases your consciousness, and makes you more aware of your consciousness. You feel your whole self, and you can be aware of your self-consciousness. And I feel depression as being too self-conscious. Depression. If you look at the symptoms of depression, not only do you get the mental symptoms of depression, you get physical symptoms as well, and feeling aches and pains and these kinds of things, and difficulty moving, being too self-conscious. Well, is a symptom of depression. I feel drugs like SSRI drugs, serotonin, makes you less conscious of yourself, so it can lift you out of depression. But also, in the same sense, it can cause you mania. It can make you more conscious of other people if you become less conscious of yourself, and it can cause these paranoid symptoms you get as side effects from SSRI drugs. And this is complicit with my determination of the self, which has been based on experiments with neurotransmitters and those kinds of things. The LMA network, which is associated with ketamine and schizophrenia, makes as if there's others around you, other selves around you, and these selves exist inside your head, but they are almost if they're autonomous selves. And this fits very well with the Jungian philosophy that you have these autonomous selves inside yourself. So and often called, well, let me see, what was it called? A complex, maybe. What was it called? A complex? I can't remember what it's called. No, but these presentations of the cells. Now, when I've experienced all drugs, I haven't had spiritual beings come down or aliens, things like that. But certainly I've had friends and family and those kind of things around me. Like having a party on to see, there's no one there. Like, oh, must be the drugs I took earlier. But I don't take any further. But you can see some people may not be aware of their conscious self, and I think the real people are there, and there's these sort of hallucinations you get in psychosis, things like that. I've had experienced extreme levels of stress. I've people come under extreme levels of stress to explore the conscious mind, and certainly I've had some bizarre thoughts, but I thought that skeletons in the desert were being kept alive by rattlesnakes. A venom was biting them, and the calcium channels fed pain through their bones, like the burning of the centre of the sun, for instance. Now, I was worried that might happen to myself, but then I was thinking, well, we don't live in these medieval times where people get sent out into the desert. Sometimes I thought maybe ancient Egyptians could be revived. You know, these bones might be revived, maybe it's a lesser process. But this is the kind of conclusive thinking you get with scientific endeavour anyway. So I wouldn't think too much of it in terms of a mentally ill state. But I'm certainly under stress. I managed to some quite extreme states of consciousness while taking drugs. I think a lot of alcohol might have been involved at the time. I can't remember exactly how much alcohol was involved at the time, or if I was sober at the time. But I think it was one period of taking alcohol and no drugs and seeing what an alcoholic experienced. I didn't have much money, so I imagine I was mostly sober at the time. But I certainly went through a litre of vodka a day for a good period of time, and that was an experience in itself. Without taking illicit drugs or pharmaceutical chemicals, and I'll clean the problem in E6, so it's non-dummy the worst aware. And let me think about some meditation and repeating mantras and things like that. Draw the subconscious mind into conscious mind. So this concept of pre-consciousness and consciousness as developed by Freud, mantras and things like that can draw these thoughts in. So I wouldn't say they're jumbled and mixed together like as described by Freud. I'd say they can be focused and pulled apart. You can actually just focus through meditation, and these are kind of concepts that Jung was describing in his more philosophical approach when he introduced God, or not that there is God in Eastern philosophy. The concept of introducing God by Jung may be slightly incorrect, because Eastern philosophies don't believe in God. They believe in death and rebirth and life cycle, much like paganism believes in fertility and not necessarily gods in the sense of Western philosophies. So I do agree with the symbolism idea that Jung had. That symbols do are created spontaneously. I've experienced creating spontaneous symbols at the time when they come, and this is through transcendentalism and transcendental magic. When I was younger, I became a Buddhist for transcendentalism and then became a witch, and I studied religion in various sorts. I have lots of religious texts around, and I feel primitive descriptions of psychological endeavour, which is very much what Jung has described in his symbolism and how alchemy and symbols of alchemy have expressed the feeling of the mind. And this brings me on to a word I coined on the wrong planet, which is transmogrification, the process of being able to alter someone's mind. The fact that your thoughts, you're listening to this now, this will go into your conscious mind, and your conscious mind will change, and there'll be permanent changes made to your brain because you've watched this. That's transmogrification. The permanent change made to your brain is by watching an experience, talking to someone else. And indeed, these things become anthropomorphic. Gods are anthropomorphic, religions are anthropomorphic, paganism is anthropomorphic, and indeed physics and chemistry are anthropomorphic. Just look at male and female connections in electricity systems. These are anthropomorphic. They're constructed of the human mind, and to be able to escape the human mind through different levels of subconsciousness is maybe a great endeavour in all fields of science, and not just a practical activity for hippies.